Hi, I'm James from Borussia Dortmund English, and this is the Echte Liebe podcast. I may as well address the elephant in the room first off, and yes, I'm on about that decision on Friday night against Bochum. I mean, what was that? Seriously, what was that? Not only was I confused and just completely dumbfounded at what I was witnessing, but the powers that be have somehow made it even worse since then. I'm going to read out two statements, one from the DFB referee committee, and then one from the referee on the night himself, Stegemann. Starting with the DFB referee committee, the Bochum player does not play the ball. Instead, he only hits the opponent and brings him down. That is a foul and therefore a penalty kick, as the TV pictures also prove. The expectation must remain that such events are correctly decided by the referee on the pitch without the need for assistance from the video assistant. That's right. They are saying that we don't need assistance from the assistant or from the very thing that's been implemented to assist. Whilst you guys mull over that one, I'll move swiftly to the most important part of Stegemann's initial interview, where he said, if Dortmund had protested more, I might have looked at it. The it being the pitchside monitor. This was after he'd already booked Edin Terzic for protesting and also spoken to the then substitute Marco Reus behind the goal after he nearly entered the pitch, questioning why it wasn't being checked. So all in all, we have the DFB referee committee blaming the ref, saying that he is expected to make the correct decision on his own without the very assistance that they have implemented to assist him, and then we have Stegemann putting the blame on the Dortmund players and management, stating that they should have been more forceful in their protests. I mean, you can't make it up, can you? Well, we can't, but it certainly seems that they can. After such a high-profile incident, we know that the DFB have to comment, but in my opinion, it would have been nicer for it to have been an apology, and a statement of retrospective action of some sort. But no, they just say that it's not their fault. Moving on to Stegemann, and I'll admit he's spoken in further detail on the incident and has since apologised more than once for the mistake. That's all good and well, but going back to his first statement, and we all know that if we'd have protested more, as Stegemann said we should, Edin would have been sent to the stands and further impacting the remaining games with a ban. And the same goes for any of the players. He would have then booked them for excessive protesting. So it really was just a blame game from all of those involved in the incident. We seem to have been on the wrong side of more than one decision that has either come from VAR or the lack of its use this season. So it will probably surprise you when I say I'm actually a fan of it, or more a fan of the concept of it. We all know why it's been introduced. There isn't another sport in the world that has so many variables and different interpretations of its own rules. So why are we still seeing the game ruined by such poor decisions, when ultimately every decision can be double checked? I'm not calling for that, of course, that would be unrealistic, but there is one defining factor as to why mistakes are still being made, and that is due to the human element. What I mean by that is, yes, we have the option of a replay or a second look at anything that occurs across the 90 minutes, but it still falls on human judgment as to whether we are to look at that incident again or not. I think that this is a huge flaw, and the reason I think it's a huge flaw is because as humans, the biggest thing that helps us or guides us in making decisions are our emotions. The way in which a referee or its VAR assistants are feeling, whether that be that they simply like an underdog story, or that the ref himself has had abuse from a certain player in the game that makes him less likely to rule a decision in that player or team's favour moving forward, can all impact the result of the game. That was what using technology was here to stop happening. But when just the use of that technology is left to human decision, which is impacted by emotions, feelings and views, there will always come human error. It's inevitable. And if we are to finish second place and only 1 point behind Bayern at the end of this season, that is ultimately the cost, and no one will be held accountable for it. And it will be something that we are just expected to accept. What's the answer? Genuinely, I'm asking because I certainly don't know it myself. Should we do what they do in the NBA and have a number of challenges each per coach? That could have certainly helped the situation on Friday night, but then you have the human error element from the managers, and you'd also have to ask, what would be the need for referees at that point? All in all, our game is ruled by both emotion and sometimes ego. It always has been and it always will be. Those two traits are difficult to eradicate even with the use of technology. It's not my job or your job to come up with a way of making the game fair or just. That's the job of the multimillionaires sitting at the top of the footballing pyramid, and hopefully one day they get it right. I think you'll all agree that this week has been a grueling one. It always is after a result like Friday's, but there is one positive. We don't play Wolfsburg until Sunday afternoon, giving us the biggest break and rest of any of the Bundesliga teams. By the time we kick off, we'll know exactly where we stand and what we have to do, just like in the Frankfurt game. We know that the team are capable of dealing with that pressure. Combine that with our home form, and I'm confident that no matter what position we find ourselves in before kick-off, we'll get the win against Wolfsburg. I'm hoping that it's the first of 4 wins between now and the end of the season. I know many BVB fans have already given up the hope and the belief that we'll be lifting the Meisterschale, but I certainly haven't. German football needs a new champion. Ideally, I want it to be us. With Union Berlin 5 points behind ourselves, realistically, it can only be us. The 10-year dominance from Bayern needs to end, and I don't really care how it happens. I've had many people pop up on the pages over the last few weeks saying that we don't deserve to win the title, and that we are only where we are thanks to Bayern doing everything that they can to throw it away themselves. My reaction every time, first and foremost, is that if we do go on to win it, I hope you don't celebrate, as of course, you've already said that we don't deserve it. But you will, won't you? And the reason why your argument keeps falling apart is because if we are handing it to Bayern, then surely they are doing the same. We are where we are because we've had an unbelievable second half of the season, which in turn has put us in a position that few of us could have imagined with just 4 games left. The hate that the Bundesliga gets from fans of the other top European leagues is completely unjustified. The only reason it gets it is due to what's happened over the last decade, and yes, it does from the outside make the league look uncompetitive and boring. Yet this is a league with some of the best fans and stadiums in the world. Young talent and many of the world's current best players make the move here, for its quality of life and culture, the draw of its clubs, and the excitement of the football that's played in the Bundesliga. Those of us that follow it religiously understand that. We get it, we live it, but it upsets me that it doesn't get the praise and recognition that it deserves. That's how important I think this season can be, not only for Borussia Dortmund and its long-suffering fans, but for the greater good of the league and the league's future. So, with that being said, it's Wolfsburg next on the agenda, and another game in which everything could hang on come the end of the season. As seems to be the case of late, we are meeting them in a rich vein of form and in the hunt for a European place next season. Since losing 2-0 to Mönchengladbach on matchday 27, Wolfsburg have responded with a draw and 2 wins, conceding only 1 goal, and that came in a 5-1 win against guess who? Bochum. As I've already mentioned, by the time we kick off on Sunday afternoon, we'll already be well aware of what happened the previous evening, as Bayern travel to Werder Bremen. We know that Werder have quality. It cost us earlier in the season at the Westfalenstadion. I watched that game and in the space of 6 minutes, they absolutely tore us apart and won the game 3-2. So, dear Bremen, on behalf of all BVB fans around the world, we ask that you perform a similar sort of miracle on Saturday evening. We will forever be in your debt. I hope this isn't too much to ask. We'll even throw in Anthony Modeste on a free transfer in the summer. Oh wait, that's not really an incentive, is it? Okay, just do it for the well-being and love of German football, if you will. Yours sincerely, every long-suffering Borussen. Now, before I finish the podcast in my usual fashion, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Steve, Sasha, George and Eileen for joining the Echte Liebe podcast Patreon over the last couple of months. It really does make a huge difference. One, it keeps me fueled up with caffeine, so that's definitely a bonus. And secondly, it lets me know that people are genuinely interested in listening to the podcast. So again, guys, thank you so much. And with what I messaged you about on Patreon regarding the group, I will soon be getting that set up, so I hope to see you all on there as well. But again, thank you. If you have managed to get this far in the show, then I'd like to say a huge thank you to you as well. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button, and if you want to support the show, you can become a Borussia Dortmund English member via the Patreon page, and this really does make a difference. So again, thank you. I'll put all of the links below, but for now, we have a huge game on Sunday night to look forward to. I'll see you on the pages over the weekend. Take care, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Echte Liebe podcast.